They say when you get old, the world starts shrinking. The phone rings less. The visits stop. The laughter fades from the walls you built with your own hands. I used to think that was just part of aging, that loneliness was inevitable like wrinkles and bad knees. But I learned the truth the hard way. Loneliness isn't natural. It's made by people who forget what love costs. My name's Tom Anderson. I'm 74 years old, and this story starts 2 years ago in the spring of 2022, the day my wife, Margaret, lost her fight with pancreatic cancer. 46 years of marriage, gone in a whisper. The house felt hollow the moment they wheeled her away. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a memory calling out for her. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, her favorite mug still beside the sink, a small lipstick stain on the rim. She'd always say, "Tom, promise me you'll keep drinking coffee from my mug. That way I'll always be there in the mornings." I still do. We had 3 children, Brad, Jennifer, and Kevin. Good kids once. At least I thought so. Margaret and I raised them with the kind of love that doesn't keep score. I worked 38 years at the steel plant to put them through college. Missed vacations, skipped new cars, patched my boots instead of buying new ones. All so they could build better lives. But when Margaret got sick, I started noticing small cracks in the family foundation. Brad lived nearby, but rarely visited. Jennifer always had excuses. "Dad, my teaching schedule's crazy this semester," she'd say. And Kevin, well, Kevin lived in the same city, but might as well have been on Mars. During those 8 months of chemo and hospital visits, I waited for them to step up just once. Margaret kept saying, "They'll come, Tom. They love us." But they didn't. When she passed on March 15th, 2022, I thought maybe the funeral would bring us together again. I was wrong. They showed up all right, in their expensive black suits, checking their phones, making sure they were seeing grieving but never feeling it. I remember Brad's wife, Stephanie, sighing because she was missing her yoga class. Jennifer complained about the catering. Kevin and his wife, Lisa, whispered about who'd get Mom's jewelry. I stood there, next to my wife's casket, thinking, how do we get here? Not one of them asked how I was holding up. Not one. 3 days later, the will was read. Margaret left everything to me, just as we'd planned. A few small gifts for the grandkids, but the rest, our $2.1 million in savings, built through 46 years of sweat and quiet sacrifice, went to me. That's when the phone call started. "Dad," Brad said one evening, his voice a little too cheerful. "You're all alone now. You should think about your future, about our future." Jennifer called next. "Mom always said family takes care of family. We're here for you," she said sweetly, the same tone she used when she wanted something as a teenager. Kevin's call came last. "Dad, we know you're grieving, but you need to think about legacy, what Mom would have wanted." Funny how people suddenly remember family when there's money to inherit. I played along for a few weeks, answered their calls, listened to their concerned questions about my health and finances. They invited me to dinner, the kind where they asked about my will before dessert. Then came April 10th. I woke up at 2 a.m. with chest pains. Thought it was a heart attack. Turned out it was a panic attack, grief hitting me like a truck. I called Brad first, straight to voicemail. Jennifer's phone rang once, then silence. Kevin didn't even have voicemail set up. So I sat there in the ER for 6 hours, alone, watching a clock tick. When I got home, I tried calling again. Brad's number, disconnected. Jennifer, blocked. Kevin, blocked. 47 calls over 2 months, every single one ignored. That's when I started keeping a log. April, May, June, nothing. Doctor visits, birthdays, anniversaries, silence. I celebrated my 73rd birthday at Denny's, ordered Margaret's favorite blueberry pancakes, and cried quietly into my coffee while the waitress wished me many more years. Meanwhile, life went on for them. I saw Brad's promotion on LinkedIn. Pharmaceutical sales manager, $140,000 salary. Jennifer posted vacation photos from Cancun before she blocked me there too. Kevin bought a new Ford truck and bragged about it on Instagram. They had money for everything except a phone call to their father. By fall, I'd accepted it. I was alone. That winter, the nights got longer and the house got colder. But sometimes silence gives you space to think, really think. So I started planning. Not revenge, exactly, just balance. I took the same patience I'd used to build my career, the same discipline that built our savings, and I redirected it. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Nancy Keller, who'd handled Margaret's estate. Nancy, I said, I want to make some changes. Quietly. She smiled. How quiet? As quiet as a man who's been forgotten, I said. Over the next year, I restructured everything. My investments, my accounts, my will. I transferred portions into trusts under new names, set up a charitable foundation in Margaret's honor for Alzheimer's caregivers. She always wanted to help others, even when she was sick. Every detail was written carefully, every signature deliberate. When the cancer diagnosis came, 2 years later, I didn't feel fear. Just calm. Pancreatic, like Margaret's. Poetic, in a cruel way. The doctor said I had maybe 6 months. I nodded and thanked him. Then I went home, brewed coffee in Margaret's mug, and smiled. I knew what I had to do. I wrote each of my children a letter, not out of anger, but clarity. Told them I loved them once. Told them I hoped they'd learned something from life, even if it wasn't for me. Then I waited. When the hospital called them, they came running, like vultures who'd caught the scent of fresh roadkill. Brad kept checking his Rolex. Jennifer tapped her manicured nails against her designer purse. Kevin whispered with his wife about finally getting what we deserve. I lay there weak, frail, but smiling inside. They thought my cancer diagnosis meant payday. They had no idea what was coming. People say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal, it hardens. It teaches you to stop expecting an apology that'll never come. It teaches you to make peace with silence. By the fall of 2023, I'd accepted that my 3 children had moved on. I still sent them birthday messages from time to time, even though the little message not delivered symbol appeared like a bruise on the screen. I'd go for long walks around the neighborhood, the Arizona sun pouring down on my old shoulders, and sometimes I'd talk to Margaret in my head. Can you believe it, love? Ide whisper. The kids, they just forgot us. But grief has a strange way of refining a man. In those quiet hours when no one calls and no one visits, you start thinking clearly about what really matters, about what you want your final act to mean. One evening, I was sorting through old files when I found Margaret's handwriting on a faded envelope. It was labeled "For Tom, when you're ready." Inside was a simple note. Don't let bitterness be your legacy, my love. Let truth be. That line hit me harder than any of the chemo bills or hospital nights we endured. Let truth be. That night, I made myself a cup of black coffee and started writing my new will. I called my lawyer, Charles Morton, an old friend from the Rotary Club who'd handled our estate planning for decades. When he picked up, his voice cracked with surprise. Tom? My God, I was just thinking of you. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Charlie, I said, but I need to make some adjustments to the will. Adjustments? He asked gently. Something for the kids? I smiled to myself. Something for everyone. We met the next morning at his office downtown. I wore my best navy blazer, the one Margaret always said made me look like a senator, and brought a folder full of documents. Stocks, bonds, savings certificates. My entire net worth. As Charlie flipped through the pages, he whistled softly. Tom, you've done well. 2.1 million, and most of it's still compounding. I nodded. Margaret and I built it slow and steady, but I'm not sure my kids understand what that means anymore. So what do you want to do? I want to make sure this money teaches a lesson, I said. Not just rewards greed. Charlie leaned back. What kind of lesson are we talking about? I told him everything. The block calls, the isolation, the way they showed up only when they smelled the end. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he simply nodded. I understand, he said, and I think I know exactly how to help you do this. 2 weeks later, I walked into the local community college, the same one where Margaret had taken our classes back in the 80s. I sat with the director of their scholarship foundation, a kind woman named Maria with silver hair and eyes full of patience. I want to set up a fund, I told her, for caregivers, people who dedicate their lives to taking care of family, like I did for my wife. Maybe they can't afford to study because they're too busy helping someone else. Her eyes softened. That's a beautiful idea, Mr. Anderson. I handed her a check, $1 million from my investment account. She gasped. Are you sure? I smiled. Positive. My kids won't miss it. They already did. She blinked away tears. This will change lives. Good, I said. That's the point. The next step was the most difficult. I needed to invite my children back into my life, one last time. So, I sent a message through my lawyer. It reads simply, your father's health is declining. He'd like to see you. There are estate matters to discuss. 3 days later, I was sitting in the living room, dressed in a clean shirt, the oxygen machine humming quietly beside me. I wasn't dying, not yet anyway, but I was ready for closure. Brad arrived first, wearing his usual smug look, his Rolex catching the afternoon light. Jennifer came next, perfume filling the air before she even spoke. Kevin and his wife trailed behind, whispering to each other like gossiping teenagers. Well, Brad said, clapping his hands once. What's this all about, Dad? I motioned for them to sit. I wanted to see you all together again. Been a long time. Jennifer crossed her legs, phone in hand. We've been busy, Dad. Life doesn't stop. No, I said softly. It doesn't. But sometimes it circles back. Brad smirked. So what's the news? The lawyer said something about the estate. I took a deep breath. Yes, I updated my will. That got their attention. Suddenly, the phones disappeared, and all eyes were on me. I've decided, I said, to distribute my estate a little differently than you might expect. Kevin leaned forward. Differently how? I paused, watching their faces, so familiar, yet so distant. Margaret and I always believed in hard work, respect, and gratitude. Values I don't see much anymore. So I wanted to make sure those values live on, even when I'm gone. Brad's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, that the bulk of my estate, about $1.4 million, has been donated to a scholarship fund. For caregivers, people who show up when it matters. The silence that followed could have cracked glass. Jennifer blinked. You gave away the money? To strangers? Not strangers, I said. To people like your mother. To people who care. Brad shot up from the couch. This is insane. You can't just, Dad, you're not thinking straight. You're old. You're sick. Someone's manipulating you. I smiled. If by someone you mean my conscience, then yes. It's been manipulating me for years. Kevin's wife, Lisa, muttered something under her breath. All that money gone to waste. I looked at her calmly. Nothing spent on kindness is ever wasted. The conversation spiraled into shouting. Brad accused me of favoritism. Jennifer demanded to see the will. Kevin said I'd embarrass the family. I sat there quietly, watching my children unravel, realizing how far they'd drifted from the people Margaret and I had raised. Finally, I stood up, slowly but steady. You know what hurts most? I said, it's not the greed. It's that for 2 years, not when you called to see if I was okay. Not once. And now that there's money involved, suddenly you care. Jennifer's eyes glistened. Dad, that's not fair. No. So, he interrupted gently. What's not fair is dying alone in a hospital bed while your children plan their next vacation. The words hung heavy in the air. No one spoke. Then I picked up a small envelope from the table. Each of you still has something from me, I said, handing one to each of them. Brad tore his open immediately. Inside was a check for $10,000 and a handwritten note. This is what respect looks like, earned, not entitled. Jennifer's envelope held a letter. Love without gratitude is like a house without walls. It collapses when the wind blows. Kevin's had a single line. Legacy is not what you leave to your children. It's what you leave in them. None of them spoke. For the first time in years, the house was silent. Not with anger, but with realization. They left that afternoon, their faces pale and quiet. No more shouting. No more demands. Just silence and the faint sound of the front door closing for the last time. That night, I sat by Margaret's photograph and whispered, I did it, love. I told the truth. A soft wind rustled through the curtains, and for a moment, I swear I could feel her there. That gentle warmth she always brought into a room. A month later, the local paper ran a story. Retired veteran donates $1.4 million to support family caregivers. The headline made me chuckle, not for the praise, but for the irony, because the people I'd cared for the most had forgotten how to care back. 6 months after that, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a young nursing student named Amelia. Dear Mr. Anderson, I received the first Anderson Caregiver Scholarship this year. My mom has ALS, and I've been taking care of her while studying full-time. Your generosity means I can finally finish my degree without giving up on her. Thank you for believing in people like us. I read that letter a dozen times. Each word felt like a balm on an old scar. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel bitter. I felt useful, alive. That's the funny thing about revenge. The best kind isn't loud. It's quiet. It's when you turn your pain into purpose and let the results speak for themselves. So when people ask me now, Tom, do you regret it? Giving it all away? I just smile. No, I say, I just gave it to the people who needed it most. Because in the end, money fades, houses crumble, names get forgotten. But kindness, that leaves echoes. And if my children ever hear those echoes someday, maybe they'll understand what it means to be family again. Until then, I'll sit here with my coffee, my memories, and this quiet little victory, knowing Margaret would have been proud. Because sometimes the best revenge is peace.